Snapshot 24W45A brought us Data Pack version 59 and Resource Pack version 44 with a complete overhaul of item models with new data driving functionality. My name is Sliced Lime and buckle up, cause we are going for a ride through all of it. Let's start with Resource Pack changes this time around. The equipment folder has moved out of the models subfolder and is now found one level higher up. The broken Elytra model and texture have been renamed to Elytra Broken, and item models have an entirely new format, specified in new model files. These assets are selected based on the Minecraft:"item model item component and are located under the items folder in the respective namespace of a resource pack folder structure. The format of the file is an object with a single field, model, which contains a typed format of item models. The overrides section has been removed from existing block models and is no longer available, and there are no longer any hard-coded paths in the models folder. Models are now only used if referenced by definitions in the items or block states folders. Models in the models/item folder that only redirect to a block model have been removed. So what are those types of item models? The most basic one is the Minecraft:"model type. It renders a plain model from the models directory, which is referenced in the model field as a namespaced ID. This item model type also has a tint field, which is a list of tint sources to apply to elements of the rendered model in order. That is, the first entry applies to tint index 0, the second one to tint index 1, and so on. There are 7 types of tint sources. Let's walk through all of them here. First of all, a number of these tint sources fall back to a default value, which in that case is always specified in a default field and in the standard color notation of either a packed RGB integer or a list of RGB values. The constant tint source type is a constant RGB value specified in the value field in the standard color format. The dye tint source type is a tint value sourced from the dyed color item component or a default color in its absence. The grass tint source type is a tint value from the grass color at the specific climate parameters in the world based on the grass.png color map texture. The field's downfall and the temperature in a range between 0 and 1 set the parameters the same way they would be set from the biome configuration. The firework tint source type returns the average of all the colors in the fireworks explosion item component, or the default color if the component is missing. The potion tint source type returns a color from the potion contents item component. If the potion contents component is present, it'll use the custom color if there is one, the average of the effect colors if there are any, or the default value otherwise. The map color tint source type returns the value from the map color item component, or a default color if that is not present. And finally, the custom model data tint source type returns a value from the colors list in the custom model data component. The index of the value to return is set in the index field. Our next item model type is Minecraft:"special. It renders a special model, that is to say, one that is not data-driven. The fields are model, which specifies a typed special model with any data it needs, and base, which is a namespaced ID of a model in the models folder to provide the transformations, particle texture, and GUI light settings. There are 9 different special model types. Let's start with bed, which renders a whole bed using a single field. Texture, a namespaced ID of a texture relative to the textures/entity/bed folder and omitting the .png suffix. The banner special model type renders a banner based on the banner patterns item component. It has a single field called color, which is the color of the banner base, as one of the 16 named colors. The conduit special model type renders a conduit. It has no fields. The chest special model type renders a single chest. It has 2 fields: texture, a namespaced ID of the texture relative to the textures/entity/chest folder and without the .png suffix, and openness, a float ranging from 0 to 1 describing its state between fully closed and fully open. The shulker box special model type renders a shulker box with the same fields as the chest special model type, although the texture is relative to the textures/entity/shulker folder in this case. It also has an extra field, orientation, for the orientation of the rendering. This field is optional and defaults to up. The head special model type renders a head, based on the profile item component if that is present and the type of head requires it. It has a single field called kind, which is one of the built-in head types. The shield special model type renders a shield, using the patterns from the banner patterns item component and the base color from the base color component if they are present. It has no fields. The trident special model type renders a trident. It has no fields. And the decorated pot special model type renders a decorated pot based on the pot decorations item component. It also has no fields. Our next item model type is called Minecraft::composite. It renders multiple item models overlapping each other and has a single field, models. That is a list of the item models to render, defined in the same format as the model itself. Next up is the Minecraft::condition item model type. It uses a Boolean property to pick one of two options for which way to render an item. The onTrue and onFalse fields are the item models, defined in the same format as the model itself, for the two cases, and the property field defines the type of property to check. That property may itself also have additional fields. There are 11 types of Boolean properties. Let's walk through those. The using item property returns true if the player is currently using this item. The damaged property returns true if the item is damageable and has less than full durability. The broken property returns true if the item is damageable and only has a single point of durability remaining. The has component property returns true if the item has a given component, specified in the extra component field. The fishing rod/cast property returns true if the item is a fishing rod which has a bobber attached. The bundle/has selected item property returns true if the item is a bundle which has an item selected in the tooltip. The Xmas property returns true if the Christmas event is currently active. That is, the computer's time is set to between December 24th and December 26th. The selected property returns true if the item is selected on the hotbar. The carried property returns true if the item has been picked up from a slot and is currently being held in the mouse cursor in a UI. The shift down property returns true if the player is currently holding down the shift button. And finally, the custom model data property returns a Boolean flag value from the flags list in the custom model data item component. The index of the flag to return is given by the extra index field, or 0 if that field is omitted. The next item model type is the Minecraft::select one. It matches a property against one or more cases to pick one way to render an item, with a fallback if none of the cases match. That fallback is specified in the fallback field, which is an item model in the same format as the model itself. If the fallback is not present and no cases match, the missing model is rendered instead. The property to match is specified in the property field, and depending on which property is selected, that may add additional fields. The result of this property is then matched against a list of cases in the cases field, each of which has a when field to match against the property, either a single string or a list of strings. Each case then has a model field, which is the model to render, in the same format as the model itself. There are 6 different properties to select on. The main hand property returns the main hand of the player as either left or right. The charge type property returns the charged ammunition from a charged projectiles item component as one of none, arrow, or rocket. The trim material property returns the value of the material field in the trim item component, if present on the item. The value is a namespaced ID of the trim material. The block state property returns the value of some block state property from the block state item component, if present. It has an extra field of block state property to select which property to return, and the return value is the string representation of that state property. The display context property returns a string describing the context in which the item is being rendered out of a predefined set of contexts. And the custom model data property returns a string from the strings list of the custom model data component, with the index of the string to return specified in the index field, or 0 if that field is omitted. Our next item model type is Minecraft::range dispatch. It renders an item model based on matching some numeric property value. This is a replacement for the old overrides section from block models and will select the last entry with a threshold less than or equal to the property value. These entries are specified in a list field called entries, and each such entry has a threshold float value and a model field for the item model to render in the same format as the model itself. The order of the entries in the list does not matter, they will be sorted in ascending order before tests are done. This item model type also has a fallback in case no entry matches, with exactly the same format and functionality as for the select item model type. The property to test is specified in the property field, and depending on the type of property there can also be additional fields. The output value of this property is scaled by the scale field before any tests are done, or 1 if no scale is provided. There are 10 different numeric property types available. The damage property returns how damaged the item is from the damage item component. It can either return the exact value directly from the component, or a normalized value between 0 and 1 as a fraction of the max damage component. This is determined by the normalize field, which defaults to true. The count property returns how many items are stacked in this item stack, either as an absolute count or as a fraction of the max stack size component, clamped to a range between 0 and 1. This is again specified in the normalize field, which defaults to true here as well. The cooldown property returns the remaining amount of cooldown for the item between 0 and 1, with 0 expressing no cooldown remaining. The bundle/fullness property returns the weight of the bundle contents component, or 0 if that component is not present. The time property returns the time of day scaled to a range between 0 and 1. It has 2 additional fields. Wobble for whether the time should oscillate before settling, which defaults to true, and natural only, which causes the value to randomize in dimensions with the natural property set to false. The default value of this is also true. The compass property returns a value between 0 and 1, representing the angle in the XZ plane between the holder position and the target. The target field specifies which target to use. One of spawn for the world spawn, lodestone for whatever is in the lodestone tracker item component, or recovery for the last death location for the player. This property also uses the wobble field with the same values and functionality as for the time property. The crossbow/pull property returns the pull distance of a crossbow between 0 and 1. The use duration property returns the time the item has been used in number of ticks. It also has a remaining field which can be set to true to instead return the number of ticks remaining for the item. The default value for that is false. The use cycle property returns the remaining use ticks modulo some period value specified as a positive float in the period field, or a default of 1 is used. And finally, the custom model data property, much like in the other cases, returns a value out of the floats list in the custom model data item component, based on the index field or index 0 if that field is omitted. And one final item model type, Minecraft:"bundle/selected item." It renders the selected item stack in the bundle contents item component if that is present, or otherwise does nothing at all. And with that, we can turn our attention to the data pack news. The custom model data item component has been expanded to source some of the data we've just gone through. It now has 4 new fields called floats, flags, strings, and colors that are all lists of data that can be sourced in the various item models. The model field in the equipable component has been renamed and is now called Asset ID. And the tooltip warning on blocks with the block entity data component can no longer be hidden by other components. The item modifier set custom model data has also been expanded. It now has 4 optional list operations called floats, flags, strings, and colors, applying operations on those same fields in the custom model data component. These list operations are the same type that have previously been found for explosions in the set fireworks modifier, for instance, and provide the ability to replace all the contents, replace a section, insert into a position, or append. For armature materials, the field item model index has now been removed, since it is no longer needed. Quick walk through some other fixes. Filled map items without the map ID component no longer change the size of item frames. Command autocomplete now works properly for parts after a /character. And empty block states in noise providers now cause validation errors instead of crashing the game. In tag news, there is a new Be Attractive block tag. The Tall Flowers block tag has been removed, and both the Flowers and Tall Flowers item tags have been removed. There are also new item tags for preferred weapons for different mob types: Drowned, Piglin, Pillager, and Skeleton preferred weapons. And that's it for these pack versions. My name is Sliced Lime, thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.